Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Ukrainian show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and our guests today are Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sasha. Glad to be here.
And Ivan Kucherenko from Kyiv, Ukraine.
Hello, Sasha. Hi, Jonathan.
And the founder of the network, Nick Polivedo. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Hey, Sasha.
Yeah, it's great to have all of you. And as I just said on the previous program, right now in Russia, on a very high level, there are discussions about what to do with this war, because it's getting clearer and clearer than on the battlefield, Russia cannot defeat Ukraine, which is supported by all mighty West and United States. Then if you can't win, you should end the war ASAP. However, Putin has one trump card in his sleeve, which does not allow Russians to end the war. His trump card is that if and when it's next year, Mr. Trump will become a president of the United States, he will stop any help to Ukraine, and therefore Ukraine will be forced to negotiation table, accept whatever Russia and US, West, or whoever else, China maybe, negotiate, and Ukraine would be forced to accept the terms. Because without foreign help, it's evident that Ukraine cannot sustain the war. So based on that, the decision right now is to continue the war until such time as it will become obvious that Trump has no chances whatsoever to become a president of the US, or maybe he even will take his candidacy out. That can happen actually in near future because he's scrambling under the all legal civil and criminal proceedings and so on. It's almost a fight between the judges who will go first and when, and who has this slot available, and I have that slot available. I mean, he will crumble and he will collapse. However, right now, he is supposedly the most influential candidate, believe it or not, of Republican Party. So with that in play, I understand why Russians want to continue their war efforts. Jonathan, what do you think about this?
Well, that seems to be the logic that that Putin is apparently or supposedly using here will be similar to the logic if you look back at the history of the American Civil War. The Confederates were hoping that in the 1864 elections that Lincoln would be deposed and they could win a victory that way politically. So there is precedent for that sort of reasoning. However, just because something has occurred once before in history does not guarantee that it will occur again. So in this sense, it's still a very long way between now and the actual presidential election of 2024. again, remember that in 2016, Trump was given no chance of even winning the Republican nomination, let alone becoming president. And in the current situation, you have people taking shots at Ron DeSantis, Governor Ron DeSantis, for running, and it's not exactly he doesn't exactly have no chance of getting the Republican nomination. It would certainly be a challenge, and there are events which can turn this whole situation around and render it completely irrelevant. DeSantis could well be the Republican nominee for president rather than Trump, and in which case, okay, that takes away Putin's trump card.
Absolutely. Not only that, if DeSantis or somebody else will become a presidential nominee from Republicans, then Democrats have to immediately throw Biden under the bus and look for another person to.
Yeah, they would be doing it in a big hurry, and they would lose whatever advantage the Democratic nominee would otherwise have of being the incumbent. See, the incumbency is a very powerful advantage, except in rare cases. For example, when Lyndon Johnson in 1968, he was the incumbent, but he was the incumbent during the Vietnam War when it had become politically toxic. And some simulations that have been run so that Johnson could theoretically win the incumbent president, it would be a very costly victory. And he just didn't have the stomach for it anymore.
Of course, Jimmy Carter was another incumbent who didn't do very well.
Exactly.
What do you think about this position?
Your turn with the grenade.
Well, I'm running a poll right now, an informal poll on LinkedIn, and just to figure this out, too early poll, what do people in LinkedIn think Donald Trump versus Ron DeSantis? 1,886 people so far have chimed in. Of that, you'll like the results. Well, actually, maybe Jonathan will like the results. Ron DeSantis is actually leading 56 to 44. Okay.
And that's at this early stage.
I know it's the early stage, but see what happens. The media keeps saying, well, Trump's the leader. He's winning in the polls. But that was prior to DeSantis announcing he's going to run. The minute he's announced, you're going to see there's a shift. DeSantis is actually leading Trump by about 10 points. So a little more than 10 points. So I would not be surprised to see that DeSantis actually captures the nomination and Trump goes by the wayside. Part of it is that he's bogged down in a myriad of legal challenges that are some of them are meritorious. In other words, they're criminal and civil actions. So I just don't see Trump even getting the nomination this year. Right now, if you're a betting man, you'd bet DeSantis would actually get the nomination.
Nick, is it possible if Trump will still win the nomination, but because of the schedule of all his trials, he will postpone presidential election until his trials will be over? Is that possible?
No, I think the trials are a real problem for him, Sasha, because the real problem he has too many trials. In other words, he's got too many. He's being litigated all over the place. He's got a lot of money to defend it, but he doesn't hire the best attorneys either, which is one reason he gets really bad results. And I think top attorneys won't work with him either because he stiffs them. Good lawyers like to get paid.
Not lately. Lately, all the attorneys are asking $3 million deposit upfront payment as retainer, and he's already paid a few lawyers this $3 million. But now you've heard that he's selling all his assets, golf courses, whatever he still has, because they're doing very poorly financially. Nobody stays in his hotels anymore, so nobody plays golf as well on his golf courses. So it's somebody said about 3 years ago. He said about his criminal liabilities and civil and so on. He said, well, let me tell you this. Trump will not go to jail. But by the time everything will be over, he will be penniless. Everything will be spent on lawyers, on other expenses, whatever it is. He will sell everything, and he will be penniless. He's going to be a bankrupt. So you started with bankruptcy of 6 Atlantic City casinos. You went through the Russian money and stay afloat and became very popular, became even president, again with Russian help. And it's all coming down to its end. Bankrupt, complete failure, spent all his father's money, $400 million, spent whatever money from Russian mafia he had. Everything is gone and done. Bye-bye, Mr. Trump. Ivan, what do you think about this?
American politics.
I think
Yeah, really.
it's madness. Actually, no one believed that full-scale war can be started in 21st century in the middle of Europe, and but it started. Russia invaded Ukraine, and if Trump will become a president again after all those information about him, about his connections with Russia, about him being a friend of war criminal Putin, it will mean a total madness of the world, not only madness of Europe, but also madness of America. I've got a really nice video for today about
Yes, please,
Putin
sure.
and his war crimes. And after watching this video, I think every person who is who said that Putin is a great leader and we have to deal with him also stands in one line with the war criminal. So if Putin is a war criminal, and this is officially claimed by international court, then probably his fellow Trump is some kind of war criminal too, because he said that he's a good guy and Americans have to respect him. So let's see that video.
Putin loves children very much. We will not claim that he eats them, but we all know for a fact that he kisses their bellies. And he kidnaps thousands of them, for which the International Criminal Court issued a warrant to arrest him. Why does he do it? Exploiting children in the interests of anti-democratic regimes is not a novelty for humanity. Just think about the Hitler Youth. That organization, built on a military principle, included children aged just 10 and over. The necessary ideology was hammered into their heads from a young age, making them ready to sacrifice their lives for their leader. Good thing those children did not follow their ruler's example. The Soviet Union didn't fall way behind. At that time, there were many child heroes who put their homeland's interests above their relatives' lives, such as Pavlik Morozov. According to a legend, he sent his father to certain death because he did not respect the regime's ideology. The same image in modern Russia has, for example, this boy Lyosha. According to Russian propagandists, Lyosha ran out into the road every day to see off Russian tanks on their way to kill Ukrainians. Now Lyosha receives presents from the hands of Russian governors. And this is a girl called Anya. She is very grateful to Mr. Yuri, who rescued her from Mariupol, where nobody needed to be saved until February 24th. But to be fully satisfied, Putin's regime also needs tens of thousands of Ukrainian children. It is known that the Russians first equate children kidnapped from Ukraine's occupied territories with orphans, even though they have actual parents, and then hand them over to government-approved adoptive families or send them to re-education camps. In annexed Crimea and on the territory of Russia, there is a chain of over 40 institutions where ideological re-education takes place. 6,000 identified Ukrainian children have winded up there. At the same time, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation officially declares to have forcibly deported over 300,000 children to the territory of Russia. This in itself is a violation of the Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilian persons in time of war. Russia has already simplified the process for acquiring citizenship for Ukrainian children who do not have guardians. Putin also approved the procedure for renunciation of Ukrainian citizenship and ruled that children under 14 years old in Ukraine's occupied territories are now Russian citizens. This aspect with the forced change of citizenship is evidence of another crime. As of June 1st, Ukraine returned only a small percentage of all kidnapped children. Russia simply does not want to return the kids because each of them is a new witness of its committed crime. Moreover, the system of ideological re-education of Ukrainian children in Russia is not just unhidden, but disguised as a charity. Children should not be an instrument of war. Children should not be an instrument of a regime. Children should not be an instrument of manipulation and blackmail by a UN member state. Children are not a weapon.
Thank you very much, Evan. This is a tragic situation because the lives of these children, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of these children, are completely changed, completely ruined. There is a very little likelihood that they will ever unite with their families. And I even can't figure out the consequences of that. I think Ukraine and the West, which supports it, have to start taking much more aggressive posture against Russia. I would start with any missile attack against Ukrainian cities and civilian targets are immediately be answered by the same, including heavily populated cities like Moscow and many others. And so therefore, and make it very clear, and so the whole world would know about that. So there will be no discussion. Oh, look at that! The Ukrainians started to hit Kremlin. How could they do it? How dare they are? Well, they could do it, and they are apparently, with a little more ammunition coming their way, they might become very soon more powerful in the missiles department than Russians. So then Ukrainians, I really don't see any reason why Ukrainians, even without waiting for Russian attacks, start attacks themselves. Just a barrage of artillery, missiles, drones, everything against Russian cities right now. Ivan, what do you think about this?
This is a very difficult question to answer because from one side, I support that Ukraine has full power to attack any military objects on the territory of Russia, not civilians. We are not terrorists. Ukraine should attack any military objects. From the other side, for instance, United States and Western countries are not giving us precise missiles which are capable of striking targets on Russian territory deep behind the battlefield. And the Ukraine have to use our own weapons like Tochka-U missiles, like handmade drones or some Chinese drones, which are not so precise and which can be blocked by Russian anti-air defense systems, and apparently they're hitting the civilian infrastructure, like those drones who were launched to Moscow hit some civilian buildings. And Russia uses these as propaganda. They actually like using such situations to show in their propaganda broadcasts that Ukraine is bombing civilians, and they're spreading these narratives not only inside the Russia or occupied territories, but also inside the Western countries using their controlled or bribed media and journalists and opinion leaders. So actually they've used these as one of the reasons of invading to Ukraine, claiming that Ukraine 8 years bombed Donbass and Donbass people, and Russia invaded Ukraine to stop those attacks. But I'm from my side, as I've said on our previous shows, that I'm from Lugansk, which is currently occupied by Russia. I know that, and a lot of citizens of occupied cities can confirm that Russia bombed and struck occupied territories by themselves in order to say that they were bombed by Ukrainian forces. They've struck from another occupied territories, and there are witnesses of these. Just immediately after the strike, Russian propagandists appeared on that site, like they will just come in nearby and shoot it. Those shellings, and there are a lot of other explanations. But coming back to your question, definitely Ukraine should defend ourselves. We have to strike the air bases from which Russian aircraft bombers launch missiles on Ukrainian territories. They've already killed, officially claimed, almost 500 children, and they killed the missile strike killed a child yesterday in Kiev in the day of International Child Protection Day. But apparently we don't have enough weapons in order to do it, and in order to make those strikes very precise. Even when Western countries give us long-range missiles and maximum long range, which are allowed now is 300 kilometers, they say, please don't use these missiles to strike Russian territories. So
are you talking about the Storm Shadow?
Yeah. Even Great Britain, they allow us to strike occupied territories, but they will not appreciate if we will use those missiles to strike Russian territories. And apparently we have to follow their recommendations. Otherwise, they will not give us those missiles anymore, and probably it will bring to the stop of Western ammunition support. So this question is very difficult, and being honest, my position is that West should change their decision regarding not allowing Ukraine to use Western weapons to strike Russian territories. Otherwise, this war will not be stopped, and Russia will continue striking Ukrainian territory. They will continue to support this war, hoping that with time Trump will come as president of the United States, and the United States will stop military support of Ukraine, or West will get tired of supporting Ukraine, some other things. And as I've said on our previous shows, the only way to stop this war is to show power to Russia, to show that their armed forces, their military bases, their aircrafts, their missiles, their factories which are producing rockets which they use to strike Ukrainian territory and kill children here, could be easily destroyed. Unfortunately, Ukraine don't have such possibilities to destroy them, but Western countries, first of all, United States, has those possibilities, and this war can be stopped only by providing long-range missiles to Ukraine and allowing to Ukraine to use these long-range missiles on Russian territory.
It seems to me that the West and the United States in particular, I think they're playing a game where Russia will collapse under their own inefficiency, corruption, stupidity, inability to do anything properly, and therefore there is no need to destroy their cities and kill their people or so on. Probably it's right. Jonathan, I would like to ask you a question. Um, I'm very impressed with your theory of deterrence of Russia through the overall anti-missile defense system. But it will take time. And no, we never discussed
That is
it.
the long-range strategy. It is
The
not the
long-range
short-range.
strategy. Okay, so there's a short-range strategy. We shouldn't even discuss it because it's simply impossible to implement as we speak, right?
Well, partially correct. In terms of a true global ballistic missile defense system, we do not have the necessary upgrades, say, for example, that would be required to the U.S. Space Force in order to make such a thing happen. However, the demonstrated performance of the Patriot system, beyond even the expectations of the Americans, when the Ukrainians showed extracted capabilities from the Patriot system that the Americans didn't know that it was capable of. This shows the potential of operational level ballistic missile defense to act as an effective shield for the Ukrainian armed forces and people, while in the interim, those armored brigades, all those armored brigades that are being refitted, that are in preparation, that are ready in theory to launch a decisive counterstroke for Ukraine in a counteroffensive, which they have yet to unleash, and which I still contend that the Ukrainian military and political leadership are waiting for the proper moment to, like a skilled boxer, looking for that opening to launch that effective counteroffensive that will demonstrate, in a political sense, a significant operational victory by Ukraine in a counteroffensive would send an important political signal as well, in that it would definitely show to the world, as well as to Russia, that no victory is possible on the battlefield for them, and that they might as well cut their losses and get out. So that is Ukraine's counter logic in holding back and waiting for the proper opportunity to unleash a decisive counteroffensive, one that will have significant political impact. And just from my perception, my estimation is that an operational victory of that magnitude, sufficient to influence the political outcome of the war, would be an offensive that cuts off the Crimea and essentially isolates Crimea from any Russian resupply or reinforcement, and enables it to literally drop off into the hands of the Ukrainian leadership. And then that would send a decisive political signal to Russia, and as well as to all the other actors, that it is time to end this war and to end it on favorable Ukrainian terms.
Well, John, thank you very much for your.
I want to add to Jonathan that I think it's better not to wait for a shield, but have a sword, because even if Ukraine will get off Russian forces after the successful counteroffensive from our territory, it doesn't mean that Russia will automatically accept their loss and accept all the requirements of Ukrainian peace formula, like paying reparations to Ukraine, like giving back the war criminals, including Putin himself, because they will just get back to their territory and they will continue striking Ukraine cities with their missiles. And in order to build a very dense defense system against the Russian missile strike, we have much more anti-air defense systems like Patriot than were provided to Ukraine. We've got only 2 Patriot systems, and in order to cover all the territory, and these Patriot systems are used in Kiev mostly, and Kiev is currently well protected, and luckily all Russian attacks are not last missile attacks are not successful, but the remnants of the destroyed rockets still fall on Kiev. The weight of one rocket which Russia used against Ukraine is 1 ton. During the last attack, they've struck with 10 rockets, and it was 10 tons of metal falling down on Kiev. And this kid yesterday was killed not by a rocket. Luckily, it was destroyed by missile defense system. It was killed by the remnants of the rocket, which fall on the head. Because if rocket strike the Ukraine, the Kiev, probably much more people were killed. Like they killed around 100 of people in Dnipro when the rocket struck residential apartment. Luckily, it was only one kid, but it's one kid dead at one day.
That's still a tragedy.
Yeah, it's still a tragedy, and Ukraine have to strike back. And coming back to the question of how much Patriot systems we need to cover all Ukraine, then we need to have at least 20 of Patriot systems, and at that time we have only 2 of them. What is the value of what is the price of one Patriot system? It's around $10 billion. $10 billion. So it's just a very short math calculation. Yeah, just multiply how much money we require to protect Ukraine with those Patriot systems in order to destroy all Russian rockets, and at the same time the remnants of this rocket, they will fall on heads of Ukrainian children and civilians anyway. And what is the price of one ATACMS long-range missile? Not 300 miles, but 1,000 miles, which is capable of striking the Russian factories, Russian aircraft bases, on which those aircrafts which bomb Ukrainian cities just fly. And I think the question is quite simple. So maybe it's better not to give just anti-air defense systems to Ukraine, not to give us just a shield, but also to give us a sword, to give us long-range missiles, which will be capable to strike Russian aircraft bases and allow us to
You're quite right.
You're
quite right, Ivan. You're quite right. You need both the sword. You need an effective sword and shield combination in order to effectively deter. The shield is something which an effective shield is something which Ukraine and neither had anybody else had for a long time, and now it has been effectively introduced, and it has the potential to have a powerful deterrent effect both in this current war and in the post-war system when you've reestablished a peace. But you are correct. In order for the shield to be effective, it must be coupled with an effective sword that can strike deep and punish the Russians for their aggression. So, yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. It's just that it's simply that the effectiveness, the recent effectiveness of the Patriots as a shield for Ukraine shows the decisive potential of these systems for not only defeating the Russians' offensive, but also for enforcing the peace and for deterring future aggression.
Well, maybe next time we'll discuss economics of war, and I wouldn't be surprised if we will come to the solution of this war is just go ahead and just destroy Russia as soon as possible, if there's any possible means. And economically, it's by far the best decision. There are some other factors that we have to have in mind, of course, but from pure economics. Nobody doubts about that. And anyway, thank you so much for today's program. I'm looking forward to our program on Tuesday. And Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.